The storm had come down from the north with no warning, black clouds boiling over the hills, wind lashing the plains until even the cattle had gone quiet. The rancher, Eli Carson, rode through it like a man running from ghosts, his slicker plastered to his back, his hat pulled low against the rain that stung his face. He could barely see the trail, only the flash of lightning now and then showing the way ahead. But he didn't need to see it. He knew where he was going. The shot had echoed across the canyon 10 minutes ago. A single crack of gunfire, too close to the old line shack by Miller's Creek. It could have been a coyote, a poacher, anything, but something in it made Eli's gut tighten. He'd been hearing rumors for days that someone was hiding out there. A woman, maybe, half-starved and half-mad. When he heard that shot, he knew it had to be her. And he prayed he wasn't too late. When he finally saw the shack, its roof sagging under the weight of the rain, there was a faint light flickering through the cracks in the boards. He swung down from his horse, boots splashing in the mud, and tied the reins to the post. The wind howled across the open range, carrying with it the sound of something that might have been crying. Or maybe it was the wind itself. The door was half open. The lamplight spilled out in a thin slice, cutting through the dark. He pushed it wider, slow, careful, and stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Smoke, blood, and something else. Something heavy and metallic that turned his stomach. The room was small, barely more than 4 walls and a cot. Rain leaked through the roof, dripping into tin pans someone had set out to catch it. A single oil lamp burned low on the table, trembling with every gust that slipped through the cracks. And in that flickering light, he saw her. Lena. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the cot, her dress clinging to her from the rain. Her hands shook as she held the revolver to her chest, the barrel pressing just below her collarbone. Her eyes were wide and glassy, reflecting the lamplight like shattered glass. When she looked up and saw him standing there, her face twisted, not in fear but something worse. Resignation. "End it now," she said, her voice hoarse, barely more than a whisper. "Please, Eli, I can't do this anymore." He froze in the doorway. For a long time, the only sound was the storm outside hammering the roof like fists. Then he took a slow step forward, his boots creaking on the wooden floor. "Put the gun down," he said, his voice shaking more than he wanted it to. "You don't want this, Lena." She laughed, a sharp, broken sound that made his chest ache. "You don't know what I want." "You don't know what he did." "Who?" he asked, though he already felt he knew. She shook her head, her wet hair clinging to her face. "Doesn't matter. He's gone, but he left something behind. Something I can't live with." Eli took another step. The light shifted, catching her face. That's when he saw the bruise along her jaw, dark and swollen, and the cut on her lip. His throat tightened. "Lena," he said quietly, "tell me who did this." She stared at the gun, not at him. "It doesn't matter. He'll never pay for it. But I will. Every day that I wake up and see what he left me." Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the whole room for an instant. That's when Eli noticed something on the cot beside her, a small bundle of blankets, still and silent. He thought at first it might be clothes or rags, but then it moved. He froze. "Lena," he whispered, stepping closer. "What's that?" She turned her face away. "Don't look. Please, just do what I asked. End it. End all of it." Eli ignored her. He knelt by the cot, his hands trembling as he reached for the blanket. He peeled it back, slow, careful, and what he saw made the air leave his lungs. A baby. Tiny, pink, crying softly. The umbilical cord still raw, wrapped in a torn shawl that was soaked through with rain and blood. The child's chest rose and fell weakly, but it was breathing. Eli's breath caught in his throat. He looked back at Lena, who had turned away, her shoulders shaking. "I told you," she said through clenched teeth. "He left me with this." Eli felt his heart twist inside his chest. He didn't know what to say. He'd seen death before, men crushed by stampedes, a boy thrown from a horse and killed instantly, but this was something else. This was life born out of pain. He looked down at the baby again. It was so small, its fists clenched tight, its skin almost translucent. A sound escaped it, a thin, weak cry that barely filled the room. Eli reached out and lifted the child carefully, his rough hands suddenly unsure of themselves. The baby was warm, fragile, and impossibly light. He held it close against his chest, feeling its heart beat faintly against his shirt. "He didn't ask for this," Eli said softly. "Neither of you did." Lena's face was pale in the lamplight, her lips trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Every time I look at him, I see him. I see what he did to me. I can't love this child, Eli. I can't." He knelt beside her, still holding the baby. The revolver was still clutched in her hand, though it hung limply now. He reached for it, slow and steady, and she didn't fight him. He set it on the table beside the lamp. "Lena," he said quietly, "you're hurt. You're scared. But you're not alone." She laughed again, bitter this time. "Not alone? Look around you, Eli. There's nothing left. My family's gone. My name's ruined." He made sure of that. Eli glanced around the shack. Broken bottles, torn clothes, the floorboards stained with old blood. He thought of the Lena he'd known before, the one who used to sing while hanging laundry, who smiled at everyone in town, who had once been too proud to even let him fix her fence without paying. That woman was gone, but maybe not entirely. He stood, the baby cradled in his arms, and turned toward the window. The storm was dying down now, rain falling softer, thunder rumbling farther away. Dawn would come soon. "You can't change what happened," he said. "But you can decide what comes next." She didn't answer. Her hands were covering her face, her shoulders trembling. He could see how thin she'd become, how the bones showed through her wrists. She looked more like a ghost than a living woman. He took a slow breath. "You said you can't love him," he said. "Then I will. For both of us." Her hands fell away from her face, and she stared at him. "You'd take him? After what he is?" "He's not what he is," Eli said. "He's who he is. And right now, he's just a child that needs someone to care." Lena's lip quivered. "You don't know what you're asking for." "I know exactly what I'm asking," Eli said. "I'm asking you to live, to stay, to try again." The wind pushed against the walls, making them creak. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the baby made a small noise, something between a cry and a sigh. Lena's eyes flickered toward it. Eli crouched down again, holding the child out to her. "Look at him," he said. "Just look." She hesitated. Then, with trembling hands, she reached out and touched the baby's cheek. It was soft, warm, real. The tiny hand reached out and grabbed her finger, curling around it with surprising strength. Lena gasped. A sound broke from her throat, half sob, half laugh. Her eyes filled with tears. "He doesn't know," Eli said softly. "He doesn't know what happened. All he knows is that you're here, that you're his mother." The tears spilled over. She pulled her hand away, pressing it to her mouth. "Eli, I can't—" "Yes, you can," he said. "One day at a time. You're stronger than you think." She shook her head weakly, but something had shifted in her face, a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. He set the baby gently in her lap. She stiffened at first, then looked down at the small face nestled against her skirt. The crying stopped. The child's tiny chest rose and fell in rhythm with her own. Outside, the rain turned into a whisper. A soft light began to edge across the sky. The worst of the storm was gone. Eli stood there watching her. She wasn't healed, not yet. Maybe she never would be. But she was still here, still breathing, still holding on. When she finally looked up at him, her voice was barely audible. "What do I do now?" Eli looked toward the window where dawn was breaking over the wet plains. "You start again," he said. "You both do." The baby stirred in her arms, making a tiny sound. She held him a little closer, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. Eli turned to the door. The sky outside was gray and soft, the storm leaving behind a world washed clean. He knew things would never be the same. Not for her, not for him. What he found in that shack had broken something in him, and yet somehow, it had also mended something he didn't know was torn. When he looked back, Lena was still holding the baby, her head bowed, her lips moving silently as if in prayer. The revolver sat forgotten on the table, its purpose gone. And outside, the first light of morning touched the wet earth, stretching across the plains like mercy.